Kunja Bihari. Kunja Bihari. Mranga, Midangam. Gopi Jana Bala Laba Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotaya Sadasha A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Srila Prabhupada Ki Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Shri Krishna Balaram Ki Shri Radha Shyam Sundar Lalita Vishaka Devis Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nantakota Vaishnav Vrinda Ki. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paschacha Desha Tarini. Hare Krishna. The kindness of all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis assembled here today. Thank you for allowing us to be with you and hopefully share some of the wonderful transcendental messages of Godhead as we find here in the Srimad Bhagavatam. We have a long way to go to, there's no end, there's no depth, there's no limit to the depth of these pastimes. And at the moment we're reading from the marriage of Samba, correct? Text number?
6 to 13.
Which one is it on the board? Number on the board? Which, all of them are there. Do we do?
6 to 13, all the verses are there.
And do we chant one particular verse together? Which 13. One? 13, okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the 10th canto, chapter 68. Text 6 to 13. We'll just read through the verses. Is that how you do it? Until we come to the last one? Okay. We'll try. Dvishvanudavatak sambo datarashtran maharatayataha pragriya rachirang chapam tasto singha ivaikalaha. Seeing Duryodhana and his companions rushing toward him, Samba, the great chariot fighter, took up his splendid bow and stood alone like a lion. Tang te jigrikshavakkrudas Tishta tishteti bhashinaha asajadan vinobanai karnaganyak samakiran. Determined to capture him, the angry bowmen, led by Karna, shouted at Samba, "Stand and fight! Stand and fight!" They came straight for him and showered him with arrows. So pavida kuru shreshta kuru bir yadu nandanaha nam rishyatat achintyadha singhakshudra mekairiva. O best of the Kurus, as Krishna's son, Samba was being unjustly harassed by the Kurus, that darling of the Yadu dynasty did not tolerate their attack any more than a lion would tolerate an attack by puny animals. Purport by disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Commenting on the word Achintyarba, Srila Prabhupada writes in the Krishna book, Samba, the glorious son of the Yadu dynasty, was endowed with inconceivable potencies as the son of Lord Krishna. Text 9 and 10. Vispurja ruchirang chapang sarvan vivyadasayakaihi karnadin sadvatan viras Tavad Biryuka Pat Pritak Chaturbish Chaturovahan Eke Kena Chasaratin Latinascha Mahesh Vasangs Tasya Tattebhya Pujayam, twanging his wonderful bow, heroic Samba struck with arrows the 6 warriors headed by Karna. He pierced the 6 chariots with as many arrows, each team of 4 horses with 4 arrows, and each chariot driver with a single arrow. And he similarly struck the great bowman who commanded the chariots. The enemy warriors congratulated Samba for this display of prowess. Purport. Srila Prabhupada comments, while Samba was so diligently fighting alone with the 6 great warriors, they all appreciated the inconceivable potency of the boy. Even in the midst of fighting, they admitted frankly that this boy Samba was wonderful. Text 11. Tang tute viratang chakrush chatvarash chaturo hayan ekastu sarating jagne Chiche danyak sharasanum. But they forced him down from his chariot, and thereupon 4 of them struck his 4 horses. 1 of them struck down his chariot driver, and another broke his bow. Text 12. Tong badva virati kritya Krishna Kuravo Yudhi Kumarang Svasya Kanyangsha Vapurang Jaino Vishan. Having deprived Samba of his chariot during the fight, the Kuru warriors tied him up with great difficulty and then returned victorious to their city, taking the young boy and their princess. And the verse, I think we're going to chant it communally here. Text 13, please repeat. Tat Shutva Narada Uktena Rajan Sanjata Manyavaha Kurun Pati Ujjamam Chakruhu Ugrasena Prachoditaha Tachutva Naradoktena Rajan Sanjata Manyavaha Kurun Pratyudyamang Chakrur Ugrasena Prachoditaha Tachutva Naradoktena Rajan Sanjata Manyavaha Kurun Pratyujamang Chakrur Ugrasena Prachoditaha Tachutva Naradoktena Rajan Sanjata Manyavaha Kurun Pratyujamang Chakrur Ugrasena Prachoditaha
Gurun Pratyujamang
Kurunvatyudyamam chakur Ugrasena prachoditaha. Ladies, Tachutva naradoktena Sanjata manyavaha Kurun patyujamam chakrur Ugrasena prajotitaha Tachutva naradoktena Jan sanjata manyavaha Kurun patyujamam chakrur Ugrasena prachoditaha. Word for word. Tat. This. Shutva. Hearing. Narda. Of Narda Muni. Uktena. Through the statements. Rajan. O King Parikshit. Sanjata. Awakened. Manyavaha. Whose anger. Kurun. The Kurus. Pati. Against. Ujamam. Preparations for war. Chakrahu. They made. Ugrasena. By King Ugrasena. Prachoditaha. Urged on. Translation and purport. O King, when the Yadavas heard news of this from Shinarda, they became angry. Urged on by King Ugrasena, they prepared for war against the Kurus. Purport. Srila Prabhupada writes, the great sage Narada immediately carried the news to the Yadu dynasty that Samba was arrested and told them the whole story. The members of the Yadu dynasty became very angry at Samba's being arrested, and improperly so by 6 warriors. Now, with the permission of the head of the Yadu dynasty's king, Ugrasena, they prepared to attack the capital city of the Kuru dynasty. End of purport. Fascinating. What should I speak? What should I speak about? I'm not going to, I don't know what I am, but I'm not very qualified to speak on the philosophical analysis of this particular subject, you could say, nor upon the details of the historical incidences which are taking place here. We'll leave those for more qualified Vaishnavas or Vaishnavis to elucidate upon. But I thought there were some interesting points which come to mind. Interesting points which come to mind in these verses and purports. Aside from the fascination of the story, we find in the Srimad Bhagavatam, at least in this 10th canto, there seems to be a lot of fighting going on from our point of view, at least. Regular challenges are there to Krishna consciousness. I guess you could say that's one lesson, or one point to be aware of, that in this world particularly, there's a lot of opposition to Krishna consciousness in various forms, within and without. We could look at one of the previous verses. I thought it was interesting to see that in one of the previous verses, there's 6 enemies attacked Samba. And it's not directly related. This is a real incident. But still, we can remember we're also being attacked by 6 enemies, right? Isn't it? Well, who's that? Our husband, our temple president. Who's the enemies? You don't have that problem here, I can tell you that. You were blessed here in Vrindavan on every leg. But people may think this person's my enemy. These people are my enemies. And many of you may have, not many, some of us grew up in the early 50s, 60s. And I don't know what it was like where you were from, but I know in England we were trained as little children to consider the Russian nation our enemy. Can you believe it? It was brought, and when I went to Russia, they were trained the same way to think that we were their enemies. Brought up like that. We never met each other, but we were labeled enemies. Like that. So, these enemies. So who actually are our enemies? Prahlad Maharaj made it a little clear to his father who his enemies were, didn't he? What did he say to his lovely dad? Uncontrolled senses. And we can take that a little further when we see who are our enemies. This is listed, the 6 enemies. Samba had these 6 warriors attacking him, headed by Karna, Bhishma. Who else was there? Other great warriors were there opposing him. Who are our enemies? They're the enemies within, right? Well, who are they? One of them is very prominent here in this pastime, isn't it? Who are the 6 enemies? Lust, greed, anger, krodha. This comes up several times in these verses, isn't it? Krodha, angry. No. Even the Yadavas here are becoming angry, and you could say rightly so. There's always a cause for anger, and it has its place, you could say. Krishna also gets angry, doesn't he? He sometimes gets angry. Who can think of an incident when Krishna clearly becomes angry?
Ashvatthama.
Pardon? Ashvatthama, yes. Somewhat moderated.
When Kamsa's washerman refused to give clothes to him.
What was that?
The washerman of Mathura.
The washerman in Mathura, very nice one. He vented his anger there. You could say he was in a very ecstatic way. Isn't it amazing how when Krishna vents his anger, of course,
When Kamsa said, arrest Nanda Maharaj and arrest Vasudeva and arrest the coward boys.
yes, in the assembly there in Mathura, when the wrestling match, when obviously it was clear that Kamsa was on the receiving end of it here, he then declared, arrest them all, drive them out. Of course, that was his last appeal, last stand. It wasn't long before Krishna unleashed his anger on Kamsa. He unleashed his anger on Hiranyakashipu. And his Lord Chaitanya unleashed his anger on Madai and Jagai. There's always a different reasons, you could say, for why an ordinary person unleashes their anger. Why do we unleash our anger? Sometimes we get angry. Has anyone ever been angry? Even temple managers sometimes get angry, don't they? It's almost unbearable sometimes. There are various positive and negative times, sort of reasons. Tests. Sometimes we become angry, isn't it? Anger has much more than just an outburst of words or physical, display, punching somebody, punching the wall. So many times I've been in devotees' houses, there's holes in the wall. That's what's the hole in the wall? The wife tells me, my husband became very angry one day. It's a fact. Sometimes we get angry. What's the cause? It may be kept inside, and you may be different reactions, maybe the depression, maybe also a reaction of that too. Various internal reactions and the way we behave, our opinions of others, all sorts of things, maybe you could say coated with a kind of anger within. It's related to what other enemies? Pardon? False ego, of course, is behind the scene. This false ego, this madness, this pride, which develops our false ego due to our envy of Krishna, and then pride, seeing ourselves in the center. And when anything diminishes that concept of seeing ourselves in the center, we can become angry sometimes. It may come out in sophisticated ways or very gross ways or whatever it may be. But anger, a feeling of frustration within our consciousness, and especially when material desires are in any way impeded, frustrated. That's probably one of the most common, if not the most common way that people become angry. We see anger, in manifesting in so many times in wars, fighting going on, in the home, amongst political parties, amongst sportsmen. Just about everywhere we see this anger manifesting, isn't it? And in our own hearts, sometimes we get so angry about others or what they're doing and so on and so forth, or that they're causing us trouble. This frustrated desire, when our lust, which is the natural tendency of one who's in this material conditional life. Lust isn't just a sexual urge. It means the sense of seeing anything, practically speaking, in this world for my pleasure. We want to obtain pleasure from anybody or any object of this world. It is an aspect of lust. And when we don't get it, it might just be even getting a job or passing your exams, or that your hair won't stay straight when you try to comb it. It could be any damn thing. And we get angry. We bite our tongue, we become angry, isn't it? To whom are we being angry? Well, let's read something. What is this anger? Animosity, hatred, many different words related to anger. Anger. Just a couple of notes. We haven't got time for in-depth analysis here. This is more food for thought, we could say, rather than, devotees often ask this question, isn't it? How can I control my anger? It's quite a common question. I mean, we're on that level, I'm afraid. We're still on that level of being somewhat defeated or controlled or so much influenced by these 6 enemies. What's the solution? Well, let's see what Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj mentions about this. You could quote from here, there, and everywhere, practically. While chanting the holy names, which is generally the remedial measure to conquer over all these enemies. But even then, he says, waves of anger sometimes rise within the mind. Waves of lust sometimes arise too. Greed, envy. Pardon? What's that?
Speak closer to the microphone.
Closer to the mic. I'm only 1 inch away.
There is a system here. Our system is not that good.
I see. Is that close enough? Is that close enough? Tell me how close.
That is the best.
Pardon?
That is the best.
That is the best. Okay. If I could get, I'm going to have to move because the mic is about 3 inches to the left here. No, I'm going to move to the left because I can't, I have to speak like this if I speak into the mic. Huh?
We're missing your messages.
Oh my goodness. Well, here we have Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj's messages. So at least this is something beneficial, I hope. One of the problems is this little thing here. If you can. Yeah, but it's right on my mouse. I'm not used to this. Okay. I won't get angry, don't worry. Please don't get angry. It's good for me if you get angry with me, by the way. While chanting the holy names, waves of anger, is that okay? Okay. Sometimes rise within the mind. The waves will gradually subside, however, by steadily chanting and crying out to Krishna. One of the reasons Samba, he was empowered by the Lord. It wasn't his own strength. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says it is impossible for the jiva to single-handedly control the illusion of inattention while chanting. It is only possible by the mercy of the Lord. Therefore, one should fervently cry to the Lord for his mercy. There is no other way of conquering over these various enemies. By the mercy of the Lord, we have to show our desire that we want to, not that we're just relishing it when these inner thoughts of envy or pride or lust or greed, anger, whatever they are, manifest in our consciousness, even when we're chanting Hare Krishna. We have to be very careful of these enemies, but it's a great opportunity. We see even many examples are there. We could take Draupadi as a nice example, isn't it? How we just heard from, I've just returned from Govardhan retreat, and a nice example. When Draupadi was being attempted, an attempt of Karna Dushushan to derobe Draupadi. Draupadi initially was trying to defend herself, wasn't she? What materially speaking, a pretty hopeless endeavor, materially. We're up against the material energy, Daivi Yesha Gunamai, it's very strong. And at that time, in Dwarka, Krishna was playing dice. Don't imitate this. It's Siddhanta, I'm not sure, Bhaktivinoda probably said, dice is gambling. Chess is also gambling. He used the very word chess. So don't imitate this. He was playing dice with one of his queens. And he was totally losing it because his mind was distracted about what was going on in Hastinapura. And his wife, it was Rukmini, someone, whoever it was winning every game. He said, "What's going on?" He said, "I'm very disturbed." What is the disturbance? One of my great devotees is in great trouble. In great trouble. She said, "Well, why don't you help them?" He said, "I can't." "Why not?" "I can't." So then in due course of time, of course, Draupadi, what did she do? She threw up her arms, helpless. "Krishna, Govinda." she realized that nothing she could do. Very embarrassing. No one could do anything. Even Bhishma was there, the Pandavas were there. She was helpless. No one was coming to defend her. When she threw her hands up, helpless, 100% surrender to Krishna, do what you want with me. And Krishna stopped, said, now I can help her. She's crying out to me, she's crying for my help. And he immediately incarnated or appeared as an endless sorry to protect his dear devotee. So this is, in one sense, not directly involved, you could say, in historical activity, but it's related in principle to this subject matter. Rather than becoming angry, let us call out to Krishna, as Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj says here. However, by steadily chanting and crying out to Krishna, it will subside. The storm will subside. Whether it's material desire, distractions. If the distraction of anger becomes insurmountable, one should just continue chanting while addressing his anger with the following meditation. I guess you could say these are some practical hints. So Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj goes on to say, what should I do with this anger that has suddenly appeared? The proper use of anger is against the offenders of the Lord, isn't it? We see Narottam Das Thakur in one of his songs, how he describes how all these various enemies can be engaged in Krishna's service, pretty much. Envy is a little bit, that's like the root of all of them. That has to be dealt with in a different way. But otherwise, he says here, but I see, so this anger can be used against the enemies of the Lord, but I see that I, with my body that is greedy for enjoyment, am a great enemy of Krishna and his devotees. So who is the enemy? I see that I, with my body, am very greedy to enjoy this world. Thus, I'm actually inimical to Krishna. If we have a desire to enjoy this world, we're inimical to Krishna. Whatever degree it may be, we're still seeing ourselves in the center. Instead of always remembering the lotus feet of Krishna and thinking of his happiness, I am engaged in the search of my own happiness. I like to gossip and fault find. Some or other, we sometimes get pleasure out of these things. Show off our so-called knowledge or our opinion or whatever it is. I am not looking at myself at all. I'm not seeing my own faults. Therefore, first of all, I have to express anger at myself. I, who am such a great enemy of the devotees, I have to show anger to myself by beating my mind. I have to purify myself. In a nice song of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he describes what this beating the mind is. Sometimes devotees they think it's something like that, It's a positive thing. He says when you wake up in the morning, we should meditate and sing the glories of all the various great associates of Lord Chaitanya. Swarup Damodar, Raghunath Das, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and all the great devotees. Sing them. Remind ourselves of the association of these great personalities. This is how we beat our mind in the morning. To reconnect with Real association. I have to purify myself. I have to try in every way to have an exemplary character and sincerely serve Hare, Guru, and Vaishnavas. I have to express anger toward my bad tendencies that are unfavorable for devotional service, such as the desire for material gain, prestige, and position, and my tendencies toward deceitfulness. Now I'm going to have to jump on. I see our time is a little short, and I wanted to cover something else as well as that. And that is the aspect of using anger positively. Internally, as we see in the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj, Om Namo Bhagavate Narasingaya Namaste Tejase Avirbhava Vajranaka, and so on and so forth. Then Svastyastu, and so on. His various prayers to Lord Nrsingadev. First, my own heart. Please remove these enemies from my own heart. And then, the next verse, which is such a wonderful verse in the 5th canto, how he feels, having purified his own heart. As long as we have these material coatings, these material agendas of any kind, we can't generally really be compassionate. We can assist those who are compassionate, like Srila Prabhupada. Compassion naturally awakens. It's an intrinsic nature of the soul to be compassionate. It's the nature of all devotees, whatever level it's on. Within this world, it means compassion, practical, for the other living entities, no matter who they are. There is no enemy. A devotee has no enemy. He doesn't have any enemies. Everyone is Krishna's part and parcel. Krishna is in everyone's heart. We may not have that level of perception, theoretically, because we're still seeing ourselves a little bit in the center. The pure devotee sees Krishna in the center. Everything he does is for Krishna's pleasure. We know this. Simple philosophy. But he lives it. He doesn't just say it. His whole being is based upon that truth. Compassion for other living entities. So devotees preach. The Madhyam devotees preach. Whatever we are, we try to follow in their footsteps and assist them in their preaching of spreading Krishna consciousness. It's not therefore we go out on the street, angry with people because they're, inimical towards Krishna. We start hitting them or throwing bricks at them or something. That's not how we express this angry tendency. We assist those who are using anger for Krishna's pleasure, following their guidelines, how to channel this tendency or this overwhelming influence positively so that our heart will become purified, it will be beneficial to everyone, and Krishna will be pleased. So that's this mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to bestow mercy on everyone. So in next, maybe you've already started, I don't know. I'm more or less based in France. I do travel a lot, but home base, you could say, France. And in a few days' time, we start our Prabhupada book marathon. I think you've already started here in Vrindavan. Is that correct? It never stops here in Vrindavan. Just turn the heat up a little bit during this period of time. Life is a marathon. Should be 24/7. So the book marathon. So I'm going to just say something, read something actually. We haven't got time to expand too much. Just speak something which Prabhupada said. This Krishna consciousness movement means preaching. Without preaching, one can have no taste. And without taste, this is a famous saying we always used to quote, you will not be able to go on with this Hare Hare bowl. Prabhupada says. This is from a conversation in 1973 in December. If you don't preach in a few years after I leave, there will be no more Hare Krishna movement. You may have a movement of some kind, but it won't be the Hare Krishna movement. It'll be something else. Because no one is preaching in the churches, they are all closing up. So why don't you get serious about this preaching work? Preaching is a very broad subject. Don't get, fanatic. It includes everything positive for the pleasure of Krishna, basically. Farming, restaurants, deity worship, management, activities known to us. They're all in the category of spreading Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada said in New Vrindavan that, are the devotees preaching? And one devotee said, that some of them, Prabhupada, should we all go out preaching? And Prabhupada said, some of you can go out, but most of you should stay here. This is the real preaching. Here in New Vrindavan, farming. He said, this is preaching, he said. People will see by the example. Their hearts will change. This is a cultural revolution. It's not just philosophy or only distributing books. That's, we understand, is front line. And right now we'll be worldwide, or at least it used to be, worldwide emphasis upon distributing Prabhupada's books at this time of the year. But what do the books teach us? That's a topic in and of itself, we won't get into it. It has to be shown practically. So why don't you get serious about whatever service you're doing? Preaching basically means assisting the pure devotees in whatever way is required to satisfy Krishna. Practically speaking, my Guru Maharaj has invented this movement for that purpose. My ambition is you make a revolution against the godless society. Prabhupada was angry, and sometimes with his own disciples for particular reasons, out of love he would get angry. But with the people in general, it's also out of love. Not the person, as Jesus said, you don't hate the person, you hate the sin. Atheism. Prabhupada was so angry with this doctrine of atheism. Mayavad. Different philosophies. Anything which was not bringing pleasure to Krishna. That is my mission, Prabhupada said. That is why I continue on, even at this advanced age. We want to guide everyone. So you have to know my books. Read and preach. Both things must be there. Then you will have potency. Preaching means fighting. And another one. Prabhupada. This is from a morning walk, also in December. They're both maybe the same one, I don't know. So preaching, Prabhupada says, is always difficult. That I have repeatedly saying. You cannot take preaching very easygoing. Preaching must be fight. Don't think it just, I don't like it, it's too difficult. Do you mean to say fighting is easy thing? Fighting is not easy thing. Whenever there is fight, there is danger. There is responsibility. So, preaching means, what is preaching? Because people are ignorant, we have to enlighten them. That is preaching. Narayan. When you came to the Western world, he says, Narayan Prabhu, when you came to the Western world, no one anywhere believed that it would be successful, I think. But actually has become very successful by preaching. Prabhupada, I myself did not believe I shall be successful. What to speak of others? But because I did in the proper line, so it has become successful. One more. Prabhupada says, this is, I believe, from a purport in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So we have to face them. Our Krishna consciousness movement is facing these rascals, these Duskritina, these Naradamas, and to request them to become Krishna conscious. This is Krishna consciousness movement. You cannot sit idly to show your gorgeousness in a secluded place. imitating Haridas Thakur, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. No, you have to preach. That is the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Amara Agyayu Guru Hara Hanuttara Edesh. That is really following the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, not to imitate Haridas Thakur. That is not possible. You can. Even you do that very nicely. That is for your safety. Supposing you were doing nicely, but that is for your safety. But one who is facing dangerous position for others' benefit, they are very quickly recognized by Krishna. Na chitasman manusheshu yaedam paramam guyam, and so on. So if you face, just like fighting soldiers, they are facing danger for the country. They are recognized, similarly those who are preachers on behalf of Krishna, preaching people on behalf of Krishna, preaching to people, I think it means, to take to Krishna consciousness. They are great soldiers. So I am very happy that you Europeans and Americans, now we see so many wonderful Indian devotees, especially you are helping me. So continue this process, and that is the very easy way to be recognized by Krishna. Because he says, Nachutasman Manusheshu. Who is preaching this Krishna consciousness? So I thank you very much that you have come here in Vrindavan, and you are traveling, you are preaching. So let us dedicate this life for preaching Krishna consciousness all over the world. Never mind, we die by preaching. Still, it will be glorious. Thank you very much. That was right here in Vrindavan in 1976. How much Srila Prabhupada wanted us to assist him in spreading this consciousness of Krishna. I'll just read one or two more here, two comments. This was also in 1977 in a letter actually, to his German disciples. Prabhupada wrote, "Go on spreading the Sankirtan movement more and more. I am only one person, but because all of you have kindly cooperated with me, this movement has now become a success all over the world." When Bhaktivinoda Thakur was forming his, I know it's called in technical name, his Namahat associations, this is his main point, was cooperation. Without cooperation, then fighting takes place. We fight, we argue. It's Kali Yuga. It's Kali Yuga. The tendency in Kali Yuga is to fight. We shouldn't use that as an excuse. Parikshit Maharaj didn't use that as an excuse. Well, what can I do? It's Kali Yuga. No, he took straight out there. And he challenged Kali. He challenged Kali. So we also have this opportunity to challenge Kali. Who are we? Nobody. But like a little boy when he's with his powerful father, he feels confident. If we keep Srila Prabhupada's in our heart always, his instructions, that mercy will flow, our parampara. And although we're insignificant, we can play a little part in this challenge of the influences of Kali Yuga, the detrimental iti shodashakam nanam kali kalmashanashanam. This Sankirtan movement counteracts the ill effects of Kali Yuga. To absorb ourselves in the mission. Even Prabhupada said one time, you want to conquer the mind, the best way to conquer the mind is to always be thinking how to spread Krishna consciousness. We may not be so transcendental to meditate on the pastimes of the Lord, but at least we can meditate on the mission to spread that mercy everywhere. Prabhupada goes on, be assured that there is no more direct way to preach than to distribute Krishna conscious books. Whoever gets a book is benefited. If he reads the book, he is benefited still more. Or if he gives the book to someone else for reading, both he and the other person is benefited. Even if one does not read the book, but simply holds it and sees it, he's benefited. You should just touch the book to people. If he simply gives small donation towards the work of Krishna consciousness, he's benefited. And anyone who distributes these transcendental literatures, he's also benefited. Therefore, Sankirtan is the prime benediction for this age. Time, so fast time goes. Okay, I'll just read the last thing I'll read. This is to way back, when this Prabhupada book marathon started in 1972 in Los Angeles. And when we started, some of you here today can remember those times. We didn't start in England till 74. That's exactly 50 years ago, more or less now. But in the beginning, the marathon was only 3 days. Then it went to 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. I don't know how long you have your marathon time here. Whatever it is. Total absorption in book distribution. Everybody, even the shopper, the farmer, everyone would somehow or another find a way to distribute Prabhupada's books and cooperate to see how this could be achieved. So Prabhupada wrote in this letter, I beg to, it's just to Rameshwar, after this 1972 3-day, I think it was 3-day marathon they had. I beg to acknowledge receipt of your letter dated December 27th, 72, and with great happiness I have read your figures of amount of books sold during the 3-day period, 22 to 24 of December. It is scarcely believable that more than 17,000 books could have been sold by one temple in 3 days. So I am so much pleased upon all the boys and girls in Los Angeles and all over the world who are understanding and appreciating this unique quality of our transcendental literature, and voluntarily they are going out to distribute despite all circumstances of difficulty. By this effort alone, they are assured of going back to home, back to Godhead. So, time is up, but just the last little point. There's such an ecstatic yajna. Harinam Sankirtan, book distribution, going out, sharing this message. Take to the streets, the homes, the doors, wherever it is, just being that little part, an instrument for the will of, like Arjuna was instrument for the will of the Lord. Savya Sava Sachin. Simply be an instrument, O Arjuna. Nimitta Matra Bhavya Sava Sachin. We can be that instrument and be becoming that instrument in consciousness, of course. We're not dull matter. Consciously aware, but in a sense being an instrument of the Lord's will, to simply take that message and share it with others. This time of the year is a great opportunity to reignite that little spark, or increase the intensity of that spark. That's a marathon. Mara, death, will come to an end if we absorb ourselves in this process. 24/7, Prabhupada said, if you want to please me the most, he said, then you all become Krishna conscious. And many times he said, just keep engaged 24 hours a day. That will please me. Somehow or another, but especially right now, wherever we're from, wherever we're going, see if you can encourage somebody. If we can't do it ourselves, encourage someone else to distribute books, support this mission of Prabhupada, to bring him pleasure. And he said, I'll live forever through my books. So, Hare Krishna. And we will, even if the enemies are very strong, we'll take shelter of Krishna, and Krishna in the heart will protect us. No matter what the challenges are, the weather, the health, the people around, the law, whatever it may be, take shelter of Krishna. And we can be protected from the influence of the material energy. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We wish you all the very best in your Prabhupada book marathon or whatever services you are rendering, to assist in the spreading of Krishna consciousness. And this is the heart of our movement right here in Vrindavan. It's Prabhupada's home, So we're going out to spread Vrindavan consciousness everywhere. Come and join us if anyone wants to experience some of these messages here. It's not easy, it's difficult, and so on. You're welcome to join us in Paris on the Prabhupada Book Marathon starting in 2 days' time. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Panchagoda Prabhu ki jai. We're eternally indebted. I know he doesn't like to hear that, but I like to say it. If anyone wants to, I guess you can ask afterwards if you want to give your, credentials to sign up for the marathon in Paris. We don't get many devotees coming forward for that one. Even seasoned book distributors. One of our book distributors years ago, I took him to England to distribute books. And he was actually distributing books. He would regularly go out in Paris and do no books. All day, no books. I took him to England and he was doing like 7, 8, 9, 10 books. He's not a big book distributor. And I said, it's good, huh? It's very good here. He said, no. I said, what do you mean? You've just done 10 Bhagavad Gitas. No, I prefer Paris. I said, why? Trinada pisa nichena, terora pisa hishna, amanina manadena kirtani sadari. I feel so close, much closer there, practicing humility. You've got humility, tolerance, respect for others, and don't expect any respect from anyone. He said that's really good for my Krishna consciousness. We're not proposing that should be our motto or our motive, but we have to realize that who are we? We are very fallen. We are still somewhat, attached to the results, somewhat attached to being recognized, somewhat attached to being, praised or whatever. And Lord Chaitanya knows he wants us to become completely pure. Just like Draupadi, completely surrender to Krishna, then he will hold out his hand. You just have to take it. It's already there, but we're looking for someone else's hand to hold. Hare Krishna. Transcendental Book Distribution, Ki Jai! Gaur Premanandi! Hare Hare Bo. Hare Krishna.
Hare